Hello and welcome to episode 183 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. Now joining me on today's episode is Bryan Garris, the front man from the incredible hardcore band Knocked Loose. I really hope if you're listening to this you've heard this band before, but if you haven't, go back and listen to their most recent EP, A Tear in the Fabric of Life. It is absolutely unbelievable and came out at the tail end of last year, and it hasn't stopped being played on my Spotify for the last few weeks. It's absolutely awesome. But the good thing is, as you're listening to this interview right now, and if you're based in the UK, the band are just about to embark on a UK tour. Go and check them out because you will not see a better show this year. They are absolutely phenomenal and have just come off the back of an amazing tour over in the US with Gojira, but this time they're headlining dates in the UK and you will not regret getting a ticket. So that interview is coming up with you in just a few moments time. But in true typical Mark and Me fashion, I always like to use the intro of every episode to touch base and talk about my last episode. I was joined on episode 182 by Matthew Pfeiffer. He's an amazing director and we got to sit down and talk all about his brand new film Cicada. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that tuned in. I've had some incredible DMs and Facebook comments and it's amazing to see the response that has come from this episode. And anyone that checked out the film, please let me know because I love hearing the feedback. But let's get back to today's episode. It's all about Knocked Loose. Honestly, one of the best hardcore bands out there right now, and Bryan is an incredible guest. So I think the best thing to do is to get straight to it. So here's me and Bryan talking all things music. So Bryan, thanks for joining me today on the Mark and Me podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Bryan, what I want to do today, there will be fans that know your music, but I want to take it back to the very beginning. So when you were growing up, can you talk to me about maybe some of the first albums you bought or bands you saw live that made you fall in love with music?
Yeah, so I feel like live music came after I was already in love with music. I feel like I discovered a love for music and then had to see it live.
Yeah.
So I was growing up, I came from a very musical household. I always say that you were more likely to come into my house and have music blaring than the TV on. My parents always had music, and both of them huge fans of music and huge open-minded fans of music. So sometimes you'd come over and it would be country, sometimes you'd come over and it was mainly hip hop and 90s R&B stuff, but sometimes it's country, sometimes it's rock. And then so I think that I grew up with just a general appreciation for anything musically. And when I was in middle school, that's when I kind of discovered heavier metal and alternative music. And from there, I just went down the rabbit hole of gathering any music that I possibly could that was remotely similar. So it started with bands like Slipknot and Korn, and from there it just spiraled. And that was when you could watch metal music videos on TV.
Yeah, the good old days.
Yeah, so I would watch Headbangers Ball with a notebook.
Oh, I used to love that.
Yeah, me too. I would watch it every Saturday with a notebook, and I would write down any band that I thought sounded cool, and then I would spend the rest of the week trying to download it or go out and get their CD. I remember one of the first metal CDs, because I had gotten a couple hip hop CDs before I found metal, but I remember when Under Oath was bringing out their Only Chasing Safety, and I begged my mom to take me to the store so that I could buy it. And when I got there, they didn't have it. I guess it wasn't out yet, or they had gotten it, it sold out, or whatever it may be, but they just didn't have it. And I was devastated. So I remember I bought a Misfits CD, and I had never even heard of the Misfits, but my mom took me all the way to the mall, and I saw this CD and it said there was a poster inside of it. And I was going through the phase of trying to cover my wall in posters. So I was I'm just going to buy this CD because it has a poster in it. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, through that, I ended up obviously loving the Misfits.
And obviously when you're growing up, you're buying those albums and you're spending a lot of money at the time. It wasn't all streaming like Spotify and stuff. So you're really taking the time, and those CDs are really precious. You're reading the inlays, looking at the lyrics, and listening to an album from start to finish. And it all changes when you go and see a band live, doesn't it? Because you see it in front of you and you can hear those songs that you fell in love with on a whole different level. Now, can you remember those first gigs you went to that blew your mind, where you were like, this is what I want to do, like this is fucking blowing my mind?
Yeah. So my first um like live music experience was I went to see Suicide Silence, and I got to see them with Mitch Lucker, rest in peace, their original vocalist. And yeah, like you said, it blew my mind. It like definitely changed things for me. It was I went into it just not knowing what to expect whatsoever, and I showed up to like a fairly small club, and there was no barricade, and I fought my way to the front, and I was just up front for the entire show, and um face to face with the entire band. And I remember just like it I was just hooked from that moment on. And also like I said, I discovered live music second to my love for music. So my mom was like pretty um nervous about me going to these shows. She just didn't know what they were about. She just knew that I was listening to this like crazy music. Um, so for that show, she actually took me and stayed because she wanted to like make sure that I was okay. And then she saw that everything was fine. And then from that point on, I could go to any show that I wanted to. So um, that just opened up the floodgates of me going to shows like every month, every time that I could. And then through that found like the local music scene. So then I was going even more regularly.
And was that then giving you a taste of what you wanted to do? Because obviously enjoying bands, listening to them is very different than being in one. At what point was it you thought, do you know what, this is what I want to do? I want to get up on stage and be like these bands I'm watching that are local.
Yeah. So I I actually wanted to play guitar first. Um, but I just don't think that I had the patience for it really. But I listened to a lot of bands like um like As I Lay Dying, like
Yeah.
really guitar heavy, riffy bands. That stuff was like so popular then, and it made me want to play guitar. So for Christmas one year, I got a guitar and I got a little bitty amp, and I got like I think it was just like a grunge pedal, and I tried to learn a couple songs, but ultimately just like wasn't patient enough for it. I didn't practice enough. And then one of my friends actually who played drums was jamming with a group of guys. And I remember one time me and him were at my house just goofing off listening to music. And I remember specifically what I was listening to. It was Job for a Cowboy. The song is What We Once Called Home. And we were goofing off, singing along, like trying to mimic his like low voice. And my friend was like, "You don't suck." And he was like, "You should like come meet these guys that I'm jamming with and like maybe sing." And I was like, "Okay." Like at that point, I was just so excited to like be in like a room making music that I was just like, "Yeah, sure." And like I didn't write lyrics. I had never practiced, but from that point on, I just started like screaming in my bedroom and like trying to teach myself how to do it, listening to other people, trying to figure out like what I was going to sound like. And then, yeah, it just kind of went from there.
And at that point, obviously, someone saying you're not shit is like a hell of a compliment, like you can do this. But at what point was it that you were actually finding some close-minded friends that wanted the same things as you? Because being in a band, there's so many different dynamics, there's so many different minds, there's so many different people that want different things. But when was it that you actually felt you could work with a set of musicians that were on the same page as you?
I honestly would probably say that that was like the earliest days of Knocked Loose, because like the bands that I was in before Knocked Loose, it was always just me kind of like jumping around in with different groups of people just to keep playing music, but it wasn't ever like seriously about creating it. It was more so just something allowing me to do it at whatever cost. So like I had never written lyrics before Knocked Loose. I've always been the singer, but I would like I remember I joined a band when I was in high school and they wrote this song and they were like, "All right, um, scream over it." And I was like, "Well, you got to write something because like I don't write lyrics." So like they sat there in their practice spot in front of me and they all just like kind of collabed on like a little thing of lyrics so that I had something to scream and I just like never really tried and but then when I met Isaac, our guitar, Knocked Loose's guitar player through Kevin, which is our bass player.
Yeah.
I've known him for since elementary school, technically. Um, but he said that he was jamming with this guy and he wanted me to meet him. And I went over there and I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do vocally at this point. Um, so I went to meet him and it was me, him, and Isaac and a different guy on drums. And they they played and I remember leaving and being like, Isaac's way too metal. Like I'm not trying to do something so metal. Like I'm trying to do something a little bit more like punk at the time. And I kind of wrote it off. I was like, whatever. And then just kept hanging out with them and growing close with them. And then like those earliest years, like it felt like we sounded different every time we got together because it was just mainly me, Isaac, and Kevin just really taking the time to try everything until we found out what we're all most comfortable with.
Yeah.
And that took a lot of experimenting. And I think that that was really what allowed us to become so comfortable with each other because it was like we would we would like close in on one sound for so long and we would focus on it and focus on it and we would write like an entire EP and this was before we ever played shows but we would write like a whole demo and then we would be like, oh, let's scratch it, like we want to do something else. So um, it's funny to think we were just like every genre you could imagine. We just like tried it to try to figure out what we wanted, and then ultimately we realized that we just kind of wanted to be heavy.
Yeah.
And that's when we got some of the songs that ended up being on our first EP, and we were like, let's play shows. Like we probably jammed with each other and worked on stuff for a year before we ever played a show. Um, so we were like, let's just play shows. And then from there, all the songs changed even more because we're very much a kind of band that like bases what we sound like off of what we enjoy to play live. And that's not necessarily like how the crowd reacts, but just in general, like you see something work live, you want to keep doing it. So it's just, I would say that even to this day, it's just constantly been evolving.
And I suppose there must have been a moment when it clicked and you, like you said, you just all knew you wanted to be heavy instead of trying to define it to a certain genre. You just wanted to produce heavy music and get that voice across. And, you know, can you remember those first sort of shows where you took this sound and you wanted to try and, you know, win crowds over? I'm sure you weren't doing a headline tour at the start, so you were probably supporting other bands or playing local shows and stuff like that. Can you remember the kind of anxiety before going on stage thinking, fucking hell, I really hope they dig what we're doing?
Yeah, definitely. I'm like a very nervous person in general. I still like I get nervous for every show to this day. It's just like something that I can't help, and like the important shows are even worse. So in the early days, very nervous. I think that I was also at a point where it had been a while since I had played shows or been in a band. A couple years had passed, so I was really excited to get back into it, and that kind of like overshadowed the anxieties that I had. And once Knocked Loose finally started playing shows, we hit the ground running. We played like every local show that we could be on, and every kind of local show. There were literally times in the first like year of us being a band that we would play Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all at home, like same venue, but it would be three different shows. It would be like a hardcore show, a pop punk show, and a black metal show, and we just opened all of them, and we just wanted it to where like any flyer that you saw had our name on it. So it was impossible to avoid us. And then from there, a really good friend of mine that's a bit older, and a huge part in how I discovered like hardcore in the local scene. He was a promoter in Louisville for 10 plus years. So he knew all these people from out of town. So he started hitting up people in like Indiana and Ohio and Tennessee and being like, yo, put Knocked Loose on your local shows. And I remember he came to me and he was like, hey, I got you a show in Indiana.
Fucking
And
hell.
I was like, dude, I don't like we didn't drive. I didn't even have a car. I was like, I don't know what to do. So he borrowed his boss's um, Florida Explorer SUV
Wow.
and drove us all to Indiana, like packed the car full of our gear or as much as we could fit in it, drove us to Indiana to play. And then we would just do that for all these like tri-state shows. And we were just playing like as much as possible until we finally went on tour, and then kind of kept the same model when we started touring. We just started touring as much as possible.
I mean, it's a great way to do it, and like you said, to be on every flyer that you could and get as many shows as you can. And I know times change now where you can't tour, and it's only just now that you can start going back on the road. But that is the way to do it, isn't it? With bands that are listening and want to try and make a name for themselves, you just need to play as many shows as you can, as often as you can.
Yeah, I think you need to play bad shows. Not like actively set out to play bad shows, but don't be afraid to play the shows that aren't a slam dunk.
Yeah.
And I think that does a lot for bands. And I mean, we played a lot of bad shows. We did a lot of we did years of touring before anyone really cared. To and played like some very very funny shows. And but I mean, it makes the good ones even better. And I feel like nowadays you see bands pop up and they only want to play the festivals, or they want to wait until they get the right offer. And it's like you should be doing it for the excitement of doing it, not just waiting for the success.
Do you kind of strive on the fact that those early shows, and even most recently, some of the support slots you've done with bigger, the bigger bands and the bigger, more established bands, do you kind of see it as a challenge to go on there and know those people are probably there for the main act, but you want to try and win them over, so that's your opportunity to hopefully see them then at the merch stand buying a t-shirt, or hopefully going home and downloading your album or something? Is that like an opportunity to kind of show who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, back in the day, it was like you were fighting for it because there's not a lot of people there, so you want to make sure that you give them a crazy show to go tell their friends. And then it's straight up like the same thing. Like we just opened a tour for Gojira, just like a huge metal band.
I've got tickets for them in the UK in March.
Yeah, they're amazing. So
Unbelievable.
um, anyone listening that doesn't know who they are, they're like this giant metal band from France, and it was the biggest U.S. tour that we have ever done. And going into it, like you said, it's playing to a lot of people that are just there for Gojira. And some nights you would see them at the barricade, and you would know that they're just waiting for Gojira. But we would some nights we would win them over, and you would watch when it clicked. Like there would be like a riff or something that sounds super metal. I remember one specific thing. I'll try to describe it for the people that are listening because it was hilarious. But there was this guy, front row at the barricade with his wife, older guy, bald head, gray goatee, super metal looking. He looked like he probably rode a motorcycle there. Sleeveless shirt. He's standing there watching us the entire show, straight face, just not bobbing his head. Couldn't enjoy it if he tried. And he's just standing there watching Isaac, watching me, like just panning around. And then we played our song Oblivion's Peak, which starts with a very like metal, like Slayer inspired guitar riff. And the second the song started, I just watched it like overcome his body. And his eyes got really big, and he just threw both hands in the air and gave us metal horns and just screamed. He just went, yeah. And I was like, well, dude, we got him. So like that
That's
kind of stuff,
awesome.
yeah, it was hilarious. And that stuff would happen a lot on that tour. Um, and yeah, it makes you like work for it. And I don't think that there's ever a time when you really should stop working for it. I mean, unless you're Metallica, like what do you I see a lot of bands either like wait until they get the right offer, or I see bands grind, and then once they get to a certain point, they're like, "Oh, we made it," and it's like, no, like you got to keep grinding. It's like doing the Gojira tour was like personally a dream come true for the members of the band, just because we all really, really like that band musically. But then once we were on the tour, we were like, this is going to be work. Like
Yeah.
this is us playing in front of three-fourths of a crowd that has never heard us before. We got to like show them what's up.
And was there some nights that you felt you just couldn't win them over, whatever you did? You know, Gojira are in a league of their own. They're unbelievable, but you know that the mindset of those fans, like you said, are really heavy rockers and more of an older generation, because it's such about the musicianship with that band and the time signatures and everything else. So were you trying to go to some shows and win people over, and you just thought we could be here all night, but they're just not going to like us?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So it wasn't noticeable. The tour was, in my opinion, a huge success for the band. Um, but there were nights when, when we went into it, we were like, it's a metal tour. We have metal influence. They're gonna like the metal parts of our music. But then, like you said, Gojira is so much about the technicality and the musicianship, and there's a lot of crazy time signatures and solos, and the drummer is like the best metal drummer in the world
Yeah,
current.
I
Uh,
agree.
so that's something that we like didn't take into consideration, that some nights I would be like, oh, they're like music nerds here, that like we don't have any of the like flashy musicianship. So there were a couple nights, yeah, you would notice some people weren't digging it, and but never like anything noticeable or disrespectful. But it's the same thing. You just got to keep trying, I guess. I mean, we knew going into that tour that we weren't going to walk away with everybody, but if we walk away with anybody, it's a win.
And how does it feel now to kind of flip that and go out on your own on a UK tour? I know, unfortunately, Europe dates have been pushed back, but with the UK, that you get to headline, so you're not trying to win the crowd over. People have bought tickets for you, specifically for you. Does it feel
Yeah,
great that you can kind of come back over and have some normality and be let off your leash again to be able to tour?
yeah, absolutely. It's headlining is like a completely different beast. It obviously comes with its own challenges, but it's exciting to be able to just put the show together as far as lineup, as far as venues, like just something that we know that like a show that we're going to enjoy as a band, and try to put something together that the fans can enjoy. And it's also been, I mean, the last time that we were over there was 2019, and that was the best year for us over there in the UK and in Europe. Things just ended on such a high note right before everything locked down. So we've just been thinking about that, and it just made me so excited to get back. So I've really, really been looking forward to this tour specifically. Um, yeah, and like you said, unfortunately, the Europe dates got pushed back, but I just can't wait to be back over there.
And you guys have been going almost 10 years, which is crazy, isn't it? When you stop and think now, it's like, wow, it's a long time. But you guys seem to be as hungry now as you ever have been. And I was wondering, when there's so many good bands out there that don't go the distance, you know, recently we lost Every Time I Die, which are just one of my favorite bands.
Me
And
too.
you see these bands that just, they just they just, I don't know, I don't like the situation with Every Time I Die. I don't like it's all public, but you see these bands that have just had enough and they don't want it anymore, and they go on a hiatus, bands like Thrice, and luckily they come back, but some bands don't. You guys are obviously almost at a decade of doing what you do, but you seem more ambitious, more up for it, more hungry than you've ever been. So what do you think it is that keeps you guys going that other bands aren't doing at the moment?
Yeah. It is very weird to hear you say that we've been a band for almost 10 years. Earlier, when I was kind of telling the stories of like when we started playing together, in my head, I was like, oh my God, it's been almost 10 years. It, I don't know really. I just think that like we all love, I mean, obviously we love doing this, but it's, we're all constantly working towards whatever's next, and we're all very much on the same page as that. And I think that um, it just keeps us motivated to see where this can go because it's constantly taking us to places that we didn't expect.
Yeah.
Um, it got at first, obviously, we started it because it was a lot of fun. We never started this because we never started touring to make it, but things just felt like they were going up like steps slowly, and everything was like the next step up. And now it's to the point where it's like it completely consumes our lives. Like it's like a full-time job for every single one of us. And it's like, so now we're like fighting to get to the next step. The steps are maybe a little bit slower now because it's like you got to plan things out more and you got to think about like what is the best next step. And I think that all of us just really enjoy that challenge. And luckily, we're all on the same page as far as how we like this band to be represented. So we don't run into a lot of like problems behind the scenes as far as how to take those steps because we all know we all know what the band is
You're all
and
on the
how
same
it's and
page.
yeah, exactly.
And I was going to say, it must be amazing as well, seeing that you're growing. Your fan base to every gig is going to be getting bigger. You're going to be selling out venues quicker, going up bills. And, you said you've probably not reached where you want to go to yet. Some bands have just done it for so long, got this main stage at Slam Dunk or something, and that's it. So they just keep kind of like Groundhog Day. But seeing you go and get bigger stages and bigger venues and bigger tours, I mean, I saw you on the poster the other day for When We Were Young, and it's like, fuck me, that lineup is insane. And it must be mind blowing to look at that poster and see yourself up there with stuff like My Chemical Romance, Paramore, Bring Me the Horizon. It's just insane. So I suppose you're probably nowhere near the top of the ladder yet that you want to keep climbing.
Yeah, and I feel like we've never been the kind of band that's looked at the top ever. It's never been one day we're gonna be Metallica. You know what I mean? It's like it's much more how do we get to the next step? And like we have those conversations. We had the conversation after our last headliner in the US in 2019. We had the conversation then is like we should try to get support tours in the metal world. That's the only world that we haven't really like introduced ourselves into. So then it's like the next step is trying to get onto a tour like Gojira. You know what I mean? And now it's like let's do more stuff there. And it's always kind of just been like the goal is the next step without losing the step that we're on. It's like we're just fighting to not move backwards.
I think you guys are evolving perfectly and seeing the venues you're playing and the sold out shows and your numbers going up on stuff like Spotify and more people wearing t-shirts of yours and stuff when I go to festivals. I think it's all natural and organic, so it must be great to just sit there and, like you said, not aim to be stupidly, successful like Metallica, because that doesn't happen anymore, especially in the world we're in now with music. People don't buy music as much, so, and you don't want to be Metallica. They're arseholes, I think, now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would love to be as big as Metallica, but maybe not um, who they are. But I mean, I do feel like every year you're watching bands that are from like our world break boundaries and do things that are completely unheard of. Like, I mean, like Architects, like
Yeah, insane.
the stuff that Architects has done while remaining heavy, you know what I mean? Like, they never really sacrificed who they were or what they sounded like, and they just continue to be like astonishingly big.
They got number one over here in the UK, so in the normal chart, not just the rock chart or the metal chart, in the number one album chart with bands like Taylor Swift and all this
Yeah,
stuff, they got the number one album.
that's what I mean. Like bands like that, like they're doing their own thing and unintentionally bringing, like it's the saying, a rising tide raises all ships. Like bands like that who take out bands like Counterparts is because I know that they've toured together. That's introducing thousands and thousands of people to Counterparts that would have never heard them, and like that stuff really has like a ripple effect. Whereas like Architects is doing things that bands like them have never done, and it brings like all adjacent bands with them unintentionally. Same with like, dude, Bring Me the Horizon is like insane.
Yeah.
Like how big they are. And I mean, I remember I saw them in like 2000, I don't know, like an 8 or 9, and they were just like a breakdown band. And now they're just like this huge rock band.
It's insane. It won't be long until they're headlining Download Festival. I give it like 5 years and they'll be headlining the whole thing and it'll be insane. They
Yeah.
work hard and they're just growing and growing. That is another scale of growing. Like it's insane the amount of shows they're doing and the size of it is mad.
Yeah. So when you see stuff like that, it's like maybe we'll be Metallica, you know what I mean? Like maybe like there's just every year I feel like there's a band that takes things a step further or gets an opportunity that's like mind blowing, or like I don't know. I feel like I could go on forever with examples, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Of course, man, definitely. And the fact you got the Gojira tour where you said, let's set out and try and get on a tour with another, metal band. It's more stuff like that, isn't it? I suppose your next thing would be something like Mastodon or something like that. Go on a big tour like that or something like that, that sort of scale, especially like Gojira. I mean, that must have been a dream come true when that happened.
Yeah, definitely a dream come true. That's a band that I feel like everybody in my band is very different musically.
Yeah.
Um, and that's like it's very rare that we can all agree on a band. And Gojira is a band that all of us like, and we would listen to it a lot in the van. So we got the tour offer before, um, like the before everything shut down,
Yeah.
and we were just like, when it got taken away, we were like, man, I really, really hope that they come back and give us an offer for when things are rescheduled. And we just told our manager to tell their team, like, we're here whenever they're ready.
Yeah,
And
just call and we'll be ready.
yeah, so luckily they sent us an offer for the rescheduled tour, and we were like, yep, we're doing it. So, man, it was awesome. It was like two levels of excitement because we got the first offer and we were excited, and then it got rescheduled. So when we got it again, we were excited all over again. And yeah, now it would be like just like a bigger metal tour, or but that's the thing, like we've always done anything. So it's like when we were young is like a pop punk thing. It's like who cares? We'll play. Um, like we would do pop punk tours, we would do rap tours, metal tours, like just whatever it is. I just think that when we made the decision to try to branch into metal, it was because that was kind of a world that is unfamiliar with us so far.
My final question for you today, Brian, and it isn't an easy one, is the outro music to every episode I put out. It doesn't matter who it is, an actor, producer, director, anyone in the band usually finds this question the hardest, but you get to choose the outro piece of music. So it can be any band, any song, and that's never easy when you're in a band because there's probably 50 you could name. But what's a song that means a lot to you that you love personally, that you absolutely adore, that you would love to be the outro song for today's episode?
Yeah, this is a hard one, man.
Kind of the one that comes to your heart and soul, because otherwise you'll get it down to 5 choices and then want to email me in a couple of days when you've thought about it. But I like the one that is on the spot, that comes to you, that you just absolutely adore. It means so much to you.
Yeah. I'm going strictly off impulse. The first thing that comes to my head, I'm gonna say "Long Day" by Matchbox 20.
Oh, that album is incredible.
Yeah, so that's my favorite band of all time, and so I wanted to pick that because one, it's kind of a curveball. I feel like people would expect me to pick something with a breakdown. Two, it's my favorite band, and three, it has um, a really big ending, and I feel like that's a really good climax for this podcast.
That's awesome. I was not expecting that at all. I remember listening to them about 20 years ago, them and Counting Crows all the time. And
Yeah,
Matchbox 20, that riff, ding, 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 ding,
yeah,
is so awesome. But his vocals, man, even if you're not into that style of music, you cannot deny that voice is up there with like Eddie Vedder for just
yeah,
complete pure rawness.
yeah. I mean, like I said, it's my favorite band ever, so I could go on forever about them. I've liked them my whole life, so yeah. Hopefully, this makes people dive in. They'll hear this song and they're like, "I gotta check this band out."
And then they'll think, oh my God, I didn't realize it was this band. I've heard it on so many TV shows and
Yeah.
adverts and films,
I mean,
but they're a great band.
that first record, it's like the first half of it were all chart-topping singles. It's
Yeah,
like
it is
every
an anthem after anthem after
yeah
anthem.
that
The
are
best
you
choruses as well to sing along to. It's like driving music. You can chill out at home to it. It's just an unbelievable album.
absolutely.
Awesome, Brian. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. I can't wait to come and see you guys. I'm going to come and see you guys in Wolverhampton. I think it's a week on Friday. So I'll
So,
come and say hello.
yeah, come
I'm just,
say what's up. Let me know when you're there. I'll come say what's up.
yeah, I'm just crossing absolutely everything that it happens. Just every tour. I had tickets for Alice in Chains, Faith No More, and every
Oh,
gig is being cancelled. So
yeah,
I really hope this time next week you're over here in the UK.
me too, man.
Thanks so much for your time, dude. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure to have you on. And yeah, good luck with the tour and everything that's coming up.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'll see you next week.
See ya.
So there it is. There's my interview with me and Bryan Garris from the amazing band Knocked Loose. I hope now that after you've listened to this interview, if you're new to the band, go and check them out. Buy yourself an album, a vinyl, a CD, or get yourself a ticket to see them on tour. They're one of the most exciting bands out there. They put on one of the best live shows, and I've become absolutely besotted with their most recent EP. They really are one of the best bands out there, and you need to see them for yourself. I want to say a massive thank you for Bryan for coming on the show, and I can't wait to come and see you this week on the UK tour. If you're new to Mark and Me and this is the first time you've listened, there's over 180 episodes available for you right now. They're all completely free and you'll find them on iTunes, Amazon Music, Podomatic or Spotify. I do my best to get them across all the platforms and they're always going to remain free. All I ask that if you've enjoyed today's episode and you're a long time listener or new, share it on your social media network, on your Facebook, your Twitter and your Instagram. You have no idea just how much that brings a whole new audience to Mark and Me. Each and every week I see different people sharing them across and more people then follow or check out the episodes, and that is a huge marketing tool that costs me nothing but also is a great way to bring on new people to the podcast. I want to say thanks to everyone that shares it. I see more and more people doing it every week and it really does mean the world to me. I also have a Patreon account set up and the link is on markandme.com. On there you can support the podcast for as little as £1 a month. At the moment you're getting 2 to 3 episodes every single week. That's not a month, that's every week. But not only that, I'm going to start releasing exclusive episodes every single month for my Patreons to say thank you for supporting me. They won't be available anywhere else, just for you guys. But not only that, thanks to the sponsors of the show, the amazing Vice Press, who in my opinion have the greatest posters on sale right now from the best artists in the world, they give me exclusive variant posters to give away. But not only that, the great guys at Last Exit to Nowhere, who have some incredible t-shirts, give me a t-shirt every single week to give away to one of my lucky patrons to say thanks for supporting me. And recently, I've started working with the amazing Richer Sounds. Those guys have given me some incredible headphones to give away this month, so jump onto my website or any of my social media to find out how you can be in a chance of winning those. I'll be back in only a few days' time. Things are never going to slow down here and I'm releasing more episodes than I ever have. So until then, look after yourself, take care, and I'll see you all soon.
It's sitting by the overcoat, the second shelf, the note she wrote that I can't bring myself to throw away. And I also reach a set for no one else but you, 'cause you won't turn away when someone else is gone. I'm sorry about the attitude I need to give when I'm with you, but no one else will take this shit from me. And I'm so terrified of no one else but me. I'm here all the time, I won't go away. Yeah, it's me. Yeah, well, I can't get myself to go away. Hey, it's me. And I can't get myself to go away. Oh God, I shouldn't feel this way now. Reach down your hand in your pocket, pour out some hope for me. It's been a long day. Always say that right when no load your hand won't stop it. Just keep you trembling. It's been a long day. Always say that right. Well, I'm surprised if you believe in anything that comes from me. I didn't hear from you, from someone else. And you're so set in life, man. I guess they're waiting too damn bad. You get so far so fast. So what's so long? Just reach down your hand in your pocket, pour out some hope for me. It's been a long day. Always say that right when out loud your hand won't stop it. Just keep you trembling. It's been a long day. Always say that right. Always that right. It's me. Yeah, well, I can't get myself to go away. Yeah, well, it's me. Yeah, well, I can't get myself to go away. Oh God, I shouldn't feel this way now. Reach down your hand in your pocket, pull out some hope for me. It's been a long day.